So the new con smell is finally off of me. I really enjoyed this weekend. Midwest Media Expo #1. Hopefully we'll get it next year, and I'm pretty sure we will. It's Youmacon Jr. For anyone who was there. You guys probably heard that at the closing ceremonies. But I had a good time at this convention. Of course, it was much smaller than Youmacon because it's the first year, and when they had the closing ceremonies, a ton of the people there were from Youmacon, just like myself. I live in Detroit, so of course I go to the convention. But it was a great convention. It was tiny, but it had a great feel to it. There were a lot of people there. Of course, a bunch of the guests. I love that a lot of them actually hadn't been to Detroit yet, so there were a ton of jokes about how huge the Renaissance Center was and how crazy it is to get around because it is a weird place to get around. It's a huge place, and if you've never been there, you will get lost at some point, especially on like the second or third floor, because you'll be like, how the heck do we get to? It's on the third floor. It's like, how do we get out of here, out of this little circle to get to the second floor? And you have to stop and go through the glass doors, and that's the only way to get down. But that confused people a lot, and I hear it all the time. That pretty much any year, any convention, whether it's Youmacon or hopefully the upcoming years for Midwest Media Expo, there are going to be people that get confused on that third floor, like, how the heck did we get downstairs? But you go through those glass doors. But I had a great time at the convention. We had a tiny dealer room. It surprised a lot of people, but first year convention once again. Had some amazing stuff, such as this Back to the Future 2 hat. First thing I bought, I went through the dealer's room and I was trying to see, of course, like anyone going to a con, what little bit of stuff do I really want, and am I gonna spend what little bit of money I have on? As soon as I saw this, I had to buy it, so that was a great purchase. I got myself tiny little Jazz from Transformers. The only problem with this was that they came in these little boxes, and it was like you don't know which one you're gonna get. That was the main problem. So it was like if you get one you don't want, they had one on display already, and it was actually this. It was Jazz. And it was like if you buy one and you don't like that one, you can trade it for the one that's already out. And I actually ended up with Bumblebee, but I really wanted Jazz more, so I was like, no, and I just switched this one. But I really wanted to get Jazz Grimlock, who is the dinosaur for anyone who doesn't really know Transformers, and I wanted to get Soundwave, who is the boombox in the original Transformers. But it was so much of a risk, and I was like, I can't just guess, and if I don't get one, I get Optimus, who I would love Optimus, but I really just wanted like three of the characters, but it was just a guessing game. And that was the only thing that sucked about it, because I actually would have just bought more. I would have just flat out bought two of them if I already knew which ones were which, but oh well. But I do enjoy it. Tiny little Jazz, it looks cool. Got some other little things. Tiny little 3D Pikachu from my girlfriend because she wants that. And this cool little wolf chest. I wish I had a card from these people because they had a lot of cool stuff. They had little plaques, and it's just a box to put stuff in. But they had a ton of these things with Ninja Turtles. They had one with just one Ninja Turtle. They had one with all four. They had Spider-Man stuff, Superman, Batman symbol on them. You could get just like a piece of cardboard with some symbol carved into it, or any character you wanted. And there was a ton of other stuff. I actually went around the artist alley a lot more than the dealer's room this year, because there was actually a lot more stuff in the artist alley, I feel, than it was in the dealer's room. The dealer's room was fairly specific, but they had some pretty great stuff, especially the place where I got this hat from, and I kind of wish I had a card from them too, which I do actually. It is snafucomics.com. So check them out. They have some amazing t-shirts. The only reason I didn't buy them was because I didn't have a ton of money, and I got the card, so I'll try to just use it to get the 5% off my order. But a lot of the artist alley stuff, you get a ton of little figures. So I got all of these little keychains for Avatar. I have one for each nation. So these are actually really cool to pick up. And then there were a ton of other little bead things. There was a desk where I'm sure a lot of you already saw it, and they had all the Lego figures in 8-bit characters. I thought they were just beads from far away, and then I went up to them with my friend, and we realized they were all Legos, and it was really cool to see that, because I don't think I'd ever seen that before. It's always just the 8-bit looking bead things, but these were actually Legos, and they were all glued together so they didn't just like fall apart if you knocked them over. But they were huge. I love the God, what is it? Blinky, I think, from Ghostbusters, wow, from Pac-Man. It's one of the ghosts from Pac-Man. I don't know why I thought Ghostbusters. But it was cool because one side was red, the other side was the blue version. And they were just glued together, and that was cool. They had a giant Blastoise in Legos, which I thought was insane. But all those were really cool too. And there was a ton of other little things that you could buy in the artist alley as usual. But it seemed a lot more varied than just art from the artist alley. So I actually really enjoyed that more than I normally do at other conventions. It was a lot broader than just here's different anime or different video game characters drawn in a different style. It was a lot of different beadworks and glass etchings, which were really cool. I wanted to get a Soul Eater glass, but I was like, it was sort of like a whiskey glass, and I was like, I just don't. I feel weird not drinking whiskey, but I don't drink whiskey, so I couldn't buy it. Plus, it was too much for me to really justify the purchase. But loved the convention. Was glad to experience the first con. Definitely tell me what you guys thought of it. What did you buy? What did you see that you wish you bought? Who'd you meet? Because there were a ton of guests that I hadn't seen before. One of the greatest things about it actually was I got to see Steam Powered Giraffe. I was able to actually sit in the front row of that concert because if you go to Youmacon, as a lot of you already know, it's impossible to get in line and just be like, yeah, let's go to the front because you have to be in line about an hour before it starts. And I went in there, people were already sitting. It was just like, oh, look at that. There were maybe 4 or 5 people in the entire front row. We were a little off to the side because it was angled, but we were still technically in the front row and you could easily see the people. And I thought that was really cool because you don't normally get that experience with Youmacon because it's so huge now. And even in the grand halls, you're off, like way over off to the side. So that was actually really cool to go to one of the concerts and be able to just see the people and not look over 100 heads before you get to the people on stage. So that was an interesting experience too, considering I've been to Youmacon a few years and I know what it's like and how crowded it is. It was so weird to see the Renaissance Center so empty during a convention, and when I was even parking, it was like, it's weird not just seeing people walking down the street and it's like they're wearing that jacket or they're already in cosplay, so I know exactly where they're going. It was much smaller, and it starts even later, and I believe it ended later than Youmacon does because it started at 2 p.m. on Friday. And I went in just before 2, and I was like, man, I'm gonna miss opening ceremonies and stuff. And I went in to get my badge, and there were 2 people in front of me, and I was like, oh, this is easy. I walked in and got it, and there was almost no one there on Friday, but on Saturday was definitely the fullest day where there were more people in cosplay, but it still wasn't super huge like Youmacon because it's the first year. But I definitely enjoyed the panels, especially because I went to a lot of the voice acting and screenwriting panels. There were a ton of those this year, which there were rarely any of those. There weren't a lot of the just silly, weird panels about games and stuff like that. There were a couple here and there, but it was a lot more focused on being broad. I think that, and that's of course the point of the expo, is to expand beyond what Youmacon is, which is specifically for anime, even though there's obviously a ton of other stuff there, because that's just any typical convention, unless it's like this is Power Rangers or Transformers. If it's a convention, it's going to be more than just anime anyway. But this one is really focusing on branching out, and they had guests who'd never been to a convention like this, and I thought that was really cool too. And we got some people who gave their first panel at conventions like this, and I thought that was just interesting to actually hear the people talk about at closing ceremonies. But ultimately, loved the convention. Cannot wait to get to part 2 of this, or year 2. Not much to really point out with this. I mean, they were keeping it simple for this one. It's not like Youmacon where we get the giant pictures and stuff, and I, of course, have all my super old ones. This was from 2011. I don't know why I just keep it in my backpack, but I do. And so we have all this stuff in here where it's like Sunday morning and this and that, and it's all fancy and detailed, but then, Midwest Media Expo, Youmacon Jr. So keeping it tight and hugging it right now. But it'll get bigger for sure, and it was definitely enjoyable for what it was. I mean, it was the first year convention, and a lot of the guests mentioned how because it was so big, there were so many of us sort of supporting this convention because we know and love Youmacon so much, that it didn't just seem like it was a first year convention. It seemed like it already had a following, and it already had a ton of people who wanted to do it, and it does, because if you're like me, you went there because you love Youmacon and you wanted another experience like that in a much warmer climate, because that was one thing I really loved. Even though with the year we've had, if you live in Detroit or the surrounding area, it's much colder than it normally is. So it wasn't terrible. Like on Friday, it was actually pretty cold. Like I was like, I should wear my jacket. But Saturday and today, I thought it's much easier for me to just walk in my t-shirt into the convention after I parked. So that was definitely enjoyable. But love the convention. Definitely, like I said, tell me what you guys thought of it. Your favorite parts of the convention. Who did you see? As far as guests or just cosplays. That was one thing. I didn't see like a billion cosplays because there weren't nearly as many of us there. I didn't cosplay myself. I just meant us nerds. But there weren't nearly as many people, so I didn't get as many experiences just stopping and saying, "Hey, can I take a picture of you?" Also, at this convention, far more so than Youmacon in any of the years, I think I was really going to panels like back to back. They were a lot of the panels that I wanted to see at least would come in order, so it could have been obviously different for everybody. But for me, I was like, I finish a panel, I have half an hour to go around, and I typically spend most of my time in the artist alley trying to figure out how to spend my money and get the most for it. So I just saw a lot of people. I didn't just stop and take a ton of pictures like I normally do. I was like half an hour, eat, half an hour, check out the game room, which I actually only went to. I really only experienced that once, and the first time I went in, I just kind of looked around to see what was there and then left. And then, half an hour, maybe walk around and try to film a little and get some pictures done. But definitely love it. Cannot wait to see how much crazier things get for next year. But for the third time, definitely comment below. Let me know what you guys thought of the convention, your favorite parts of it, what you did, what you got. If you could put a video response, that would be great too. Or just comment, of course. If you got one of the Back to the Future hats, you have to put a video response for that. But thanks for watching this, and definitely I'll see you guys at Youmacon, because I'll be there, and I'll definitely be wearing my hat, because once I saw this, I was like, every day now, it's just going to be Back to the Future Part 2 for me. And also met a guy who said he was waiting until New Year's, he was going to get the jacket and wait to put on his hat and stuff so he'd be in style. I thought that was so funny, but it was just like, this guy's super nerdy like me. I got it, because I love Back to the Future, and Part 2 is my favorite film, so I just got exactly what he meant. That was so funny to me. And it was also great to see how many people love Back to the Future, because I don't have anything that shows that I love Back to the Future, but now I do, so I'm just so happy about this hat. But comment below, let me know what you guys thought of the convention, favorite stuff, what you got, anything else, and thanks for watching.